Welcome to the exclusive club that Dads Don't Want to Belong To podcast, hosted by Trevor Dwyer Lynch. Trevor speaks with dads about the loss of their son or daughter and asks how they cope, if indeed they cope at all. This podcast is proudly supported by the Manx Spirit charity. Thank you for listening.
So here we are walking along Blackpool Prom. At the moment I'm dodging about 3 or 4 low-flying seagulls. Tell you what, I'm sure they're trying to shit on me, but isn't that supposed to be good luck? Anyway, on to the podcast. So, obviously I know you as Chris. If you'd like to introduce yourself, mate, and tell our listeners who you are and a little bit about yourself, that'd be cool. Great.
Yeah, so my government name, as Dave the rapper says, is Chris Nelson. The name that most people, the vast majority of people know me by in Manchester is Chris Jam. So I came to Manchester in 1986 when the Hacienda was turning away 2,000-3,000 people every night. I met Tomlin McKinley on the first night I was in Manchester. Got involved in DJing at places like the Gallery and all the clubs around town, but and that was all the soul vibes and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, the whole rave thing was going on, so we started doing illicit blues parties at the kitchen and doing all the Blackburn raves and all that crazy kind of stuff as DJs, known as the Jam MCs. That took us around the world DJing over a period of time. We were even at one point the Happy Mondays tour DJs on there, Pills, Fills and Bellyache tour. So, too much, in some ways, it's a regret of mine. At some point, we got fed up with dance music and veered away when it was becoming a formularized industry. And I got into spoken word then. Started a night called Speakeasy. With Shagan the French, Garfield down at the Green Room. Did that for about 10, 12 years, which was an amazing night, and we had people like your Mike Garris, Lemsis, everyone came down to that. I'm sure you came down there yourself, Trevor, as well. We had a live band. It really cemented that kind of format, especially in Manchester, of open mic with music and DJ and all that kind of stuff. And continued DJing in the more underground clubs and writing spoken word after Speakeasy. Had a little company doing spoken word in schools for a good while. So yeah, I'm going on a bit. I've also done a lot of radio.
No. I mean, I said for me, you know what I mean? You've always been one of the most innovative, creative kids around the block. You know what I mean? Around town. I mean, people talk about the Hacienda and blah 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 blah. And it's always been a bit of a gripe of mine where everything's about. Well, we don't have to name him because you never know, I might get sued. But about a certain section of the Hacienda, but people don't talk about what went on behind the backstory. People like yourselves, other established DJs, other bands, Yago and people like that, and you know what I'm on about. But
Yago, I've not seen Basil for so long.
Yeah.
On that front, I mean, what the bit I missed out actually was as I said, Hacienda were turning away so many people, and in 1989, through some people I met through the kitchen, just that thing of coming from London, and everything is so disparate, and everyone's very
key.
It's just a more formula. It was just a more formularized situation. Whereas here, like we met everyone through the kitchen. We saw that Ian Brown. Sean, that's how we got the tour with the Mondays. I walked in there one night and Sean Ryder was sitting on the floor smoking a large zoot. We met all those people for that. So I met this guy there, and we decided to open the club. So where the triangle is now, underneath there, you'll know it used to be Pips.
Yeah, exactly.
So at one point, because but I took it on anyway. We managed to. So we had Conspiracy, which
that's right,
you'll find in all the with a K. Yeah. So that. And we took a lot of the overspill from Hacienda and people who would never have got in there anyway.
No, exactly. Yeah, but it's mad
for what was going on there. So and it made its mark in club history. In just 9 months, because then there was that time when because there was so much nonsense going on in all the clubs, the police put out those revocation orders. They shut down Hacienda, they shut down the British Protection, they shut us down. But places like Hacienda, they went and got George Carman as their solicitor. Managed to get through it. Whereas we had some Tin Pot Alley solicitors down the road, and rightfully, to be fair, because it was out of control.
And it's mad that because, like I say, Paul and I worked with Gaz wheeling a lot.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Really?
Yeah.
Top man.
Gaz is a top kid, and it's really, really weird.
Yeah,
I never knew.
he really is. I've not seen.
Yeah, I never really knew. Obviously knew the band, and to say hello and nod your head. Paul and I have worked with Gaz a lot, and never knew that Gaz and my younger brother were close mates at school.
Right.
To the 20s. It was really strange, and until we worked. But yeah, it was good. But yeah, it was. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. So for me, obviously knowing you, outside of this club that we're both members of now, do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And
Yes.
massive, obviously, shock to me when obviously I heard about your son and what have you. So obviously, I'm gonna change the mood a little bit.
Yeah, man.
And again, remember, like the premise of my podcast is that obviously of this podcast is just for people just to be themselves. Do you know what I mean? And if you want to talk about, the sons or the daughter, fantastic. And if you feel like you don't at any time, you just go, that's just it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, if it's okay with you, perhaps you could tell the listeners a little bit about your loss and.
Yeah, sure. So, up until around about 5.5, Blaze was a thriving, creative, joyous young boy, and then just all of a sudden we started to notice changes in him. He started coming home and saying, and saying things like, he was suffering effects within himself that were definitely there for him, but we could see weren't actually happening. Like, apart from headaches was one thing, but then like there was plenty of times he'd come home and say things like, I've got bogies in my mouth, and he'd start stuffing tissues into his mouth. You could tell he was that anxious. So there was a lot of sensory deprivation things going on. He wouldn't eat food. We couldn't. All of a sudden, there was a joyous boy going to school every day. We couldn't get him to school. We'd have to literally some days, and on reflection, now knowing what we know, we wish we hadn't even tried. We were trying to get him to school and having to hand him over to the teachers and them taking him and him being, and then all of a sudden it would calm down. A few days would go by. Then all this stuff would start again. So over the period of about 6 months, there must have been about 5 or 6 occasions when things had got that heightened and his temperatures up there. I took him to A&E over about 6 months, at least 6 times. And I always say to people, I don't blame the A&E at all for this. Do you know what I mean? They were going through what they couldn't see what it was. It wasn't till after about, and I could see at one point they're almost looking at it's like, what's going on here? Something going on with you guys, do you know what I mean? And then about 6 months in, for the first time, Rachel could see a lump on the back of his head, and she kind of knew. So my wife, Rachel, her father died of brain cancer about 5 years prior to Blaze. So and I only found this out afterwards. She kind of knew straight away what Blaze was going to be diagnosed with. So he went to hospital, went to the A&E this final time, and that was the first time they decided to give him the MRI scan, and came back within about 50 minutes and told us that Blaze had a Satsuma-sized lump on the stem of his brain, and as well as that they could see coating on his spine. So obviously, a day later he was in surgery, cut his head open, took a piece for the biopsy, and that came back as a tumor, which they eventually diagnosed as a low-grade glioma. Now there are, obviously you get foisted into all this, don't you? I had no insights into any of this at all. The term low-grade glioma sound, obviously it's a brain tumor anyway, so it's going to be, and it's on his stem, so it's never going to be something that's going to be an easy journey.
Yeah.
However, low-grade gliomas, they come in many forms themselves, and they're not. It's not anywhere near as I say, an easy journey as it sounds. Lots of people have them and never recover from them, especially from brain tumors anyway. So yeah, he was. So we were diagnosed, and they started him on chemotherapy for, I think, about 10 weeks, maybe 10, 12 weeks. And that wasn't having any positive effects. Obviously, because of his age, he was only 5.5, 6 by then. They didn't want to give him radiotherapy, but they saw that they had no choice. So we went on to radiotherapy over the summer of 2018, I think. Obviously down at Christie's, which totally ravaged him. Totally ravaged him. He lost his hair, skin. He was about your complexion, Trevor. And patches of him was my complexion. Totally ravaged him that Christmas. And things weren't getting any better. I'm not saying the hospital gave up on him at all, but after the radiotherapy, they could see that things were not having nothing. None of the treatment that was having any positive effects. And like I say, they weren't saying they were giving up, but they were at a loss as to what to try next. They did find of which the name escapes me at the moment, but they did find a trial drug that they've been trying on adults that was, in some cases, stemming tumors for up to 5 years. So they started him on that. He was part of a new trial for children. They started him on that. And I do remember quite clearly, after about 2 weeks, actually, because he'd been so ravaged, and he was so weak and thin. I do remember just getting up one morning and just seeing that light come back on in his eyes. It was amazing. That moment was amazing. And so after that, we had the best part of a year, just over a year, was he had a tube. He had a tube inside him to feed him, and he was still recovering from all the radiotherapy and the chemotherapy, plus the brain tumor itself. But he was a different boy. He even went back to school for a while. Spent some time with his friends, and we, you'll know yourself again. One of the lights in this very dark tunnel is meeting all these small and big charities. There's so many people who have, like ourselves, have lost people and have done it's such a well-trodden path that people, when they lose loved ones, set up their own small charities as a way to give meaning to their lost ones' lives and to try and help others. It happens in so many fields, in medicine and in all kinds of tragedies. So yeah, we met many people like that who gave us trips away, and some of the more corporate things, like we got trips to Legoland and places like that. And another deeply enriching and heartening aspect was, the whole Manchester music community came together so much to help us.
Yeah.
Whole music and arts community. We, as with many families, we both had to give up work straight away. And there's no there isn't any what do they call it, benefits even. We ended up on universal credit, which is totally inappropriate. So we had to go through all those hoops in the first place. I mean, thank goodness we met a guy at the Universal Credit office in Didsbury who did his best to get us onto the system. He bent many corners to get us onto the system. And interestingly enough, they sacked him in the end because he'd been so. I'm sure we weren't the only people that he'd been so human with. They got rid of him. So yeah, we were on universal credit, and but so much of the Manchester music community came together, and we did a couple of charity events, and and we even did with the help of many friends like Craig from Black and Bullets. We did a mini festival for Blaze. Roretta came down and sang. We got loads of bands on. Craig from Black and Bullets put a whole sound system in a field for us for absolutely nothing, just as we could raise funds and give Blaze this amazing party. So yeah, so many people really supported us so much. It was just so beautiful, and so just the support that you need.
So Blaze then grew his wings when he was 7.
Yeah. I think, as I say, it was about a year and a bit. And we were going down to as you do, you go down to the hospital every couple of weeks to get your check up and whatnot. And everything seemed to be going fine. And then we went there one time, and they told us that the tumor started to grow again. So that was after about a year, 12 months. And that was, again, like being hit like by a car. And then 5 days.
So, I mean, for me, I've always known you as this soul full of energy. Like myself, we try and tune in with the university, etc. And obviously we're talking in the past, and that emits from you. Tell me how Voices came about, because for me,
well, I mean, like I say, it was 5 days. But we took the place home, and he was here in our bedroom next door, in our bed, and just sitting with and watching that boy slowly slip away, so quietly, so peacefully. Not something that you want to go through, but it was an enlightening process to go through. Not one you'd want to go through. I'm choosing my words carefully. Obviously, it wasn't something to be celebrated or anything, but it was an honor to be there with him, and obviously we were glad to be at home. But you could. It was a vivid experience of seeing the energy from a person leave the physical body, is what I'm trying to say. And so it's something that I've been through my own journey in my life. I got into meditation about 27 years ago, and I thought I was losing my mind completely. And it's been something that's been a journey that I've picked up and put down over time. And it really helped me while, throughout Blaze's time, the last couple of years. And I was asked by Disbury Arts Festival to put on an event at the beginning of the year as part of Disbury Arts Festival. After Blaze passed, sorry, I'm going back and forth a bit here.
No, it's all right. It's all right. Do you need a drink or anything? You okay?
No, I'm fine. Honestly, I'm fine. Yeah. After Blaze passed, as I said, with many of these families, I wanted to start some kind of a charity, or to do something that could I thought could honor Blaze and help others in the same situation. That never transpired. They asked me to do this event for Disbury Arts Festival, and I thought, I just thought about the whole idea of, just the way I have experienced Blaze's loss and the way I've gone through my process. For me, Blaze is, and you say this, and even as I say it now, and I don't try to convince people, but Blaze is such an energetic part of me. Whatever, for me, we all return to a universal vibration, that one frequency. That's, for me, what all the good books say. Not trying to force my beliefs onto anyone. This is what I believe, try to walk and breathe. I fail every day, but that's what keeps me going. And that has only been enhanced by the loss of my son. Seeing someone pass like that, and finding a way to walk with it, finding a way to encompass what has happened to me, and this is how I do it. So yeah, I believe that you can honor people, you can celebrate, you can connect with their spiritual frequency through voice, through your thoughts, word, deeds, but through voice as well, which is our universal, our physical instrument for vibration, our prime physical instrument for vibration. So that was the idea for Voices. And then again, it's interesting, as I was thinking about this before, when I put it out there like that, you were one of the first people I spoke to. And, and then I remember when we had the conversation, and you kind of said to me about the chanting that you had done, and I've just come across so many people in this time who have immediately connected, not because I've said it, Because, it's not, it's not me who's discovered this. This is what science tells us. This is what so many forms of spirituality tell us, in their own codified ways. And again, to be clear, I'm not saying that it is for definite. I'm not saying that everyone has to believe it. Everyone walks their path in a different way. But that's what I found so amazing about Voices. I don't think everyone in there would agree with everything I'm saying right now, but they could connect with the idea of celebrating the people who they've lost, and in that process helping them to be able to walk with it.
Yeah.
So that's in a very long twisted form. That was the idea behind Voices, really, is to have that space, and that it was just so Again, you get so reticent using words like wonderful, but there was definitely something fortifying, edifying, something of value of all those people in there, And so again, taking it outside of losing a child like yourself and I have done, there's not a person who won't speak to won't be, if they haven't yet, they won't be experiencing loss. It can be a father, it can be a cat, even it can whatever. So that space there for people to come and be able to express themselves in that way is open to all, whatever form the loss is. So that was the initial night, and you've given when the way you've spoken to me a couple of times afterwards, and other people, it has really spurred me to develop it in different ways, and there will be another event. Maybe not exactly the same format, but I think one thing that has come to mind over the last week or so is to get some of the people who did their poetry to record some kind of an EP or something like that. Something that we could again, and the other point with the event is that there was no entry fee. People gave money so we could give some more money towards brain cancer research. We raised £500, which is going to go to the Brain Tumor Trust, and I'd like to do as a next project, I'd like to do an EP with some of your poems, some of the other people's poems, and put that out there and see if we can raise some more money. It doesn't necessarily have to be for brain cancer research next time. It can be for many of the causes that are associated with grief and loss and recovery.
Just to obviously enrich that for our listeners. Voices was basically a night of, again, you do choose words carefully, celebration, about respect, about love for people who've lost someone. And that loss would be from your great-grandparents right through to your parents, everybody, your sons, daughters, whatever. And Chris had got this little gaff in Disbury, which is a pretty unique, specialised little place. Because no one really, don't really, it's a hidden gem.
It really is.
Listeners might know it's called the Albert Club.
Yeah,
which is set in Disbury down this lovely suburban leafy road, and then suddenly between these two buildings, it opens up and there's a club there, and you're like, what's this about? They only do tennis there and there's bowls there, and you think, oh, it's probably some old retirement place, but it is truly a gem. And what Chris had done, he invited people who wanted to speak about their loved ones in forms of either spoken word or basically anything that they'd written, whether that be a monologue or excerpts of the journal. And the response was unbelievable. And some guy, if I remember rightly, Chris, he'd come from Scarborough.
Yes, yeah. He just reached out to me from some festival I'd done a couple of years ago, and it's a conversation just developed with him. And again, he originally reached out to me, wanting to just show me some of his spoken word, and then he said he would come down on the night to do some poetry. Turned out, as with everyone, he's lost people, on his journey, and he also brought that plan with him. Plan. Again, vibration, just the connections there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So actually, I've just talked around in a few circles. So and that's fine for trying to explain myself. But as you're saying, so Voices was part of Disbury Arts Festival at the Albert Club. The idea was spoken word, music, as you say, monologues, for people to honor and celebrate their lost people. So we had an open mic situation. and we had a band who I worked with called Inner Groove did a
Yeah.
set towards the end as well. I think we had about 10 poets come and do their thing. A little bit of music and DJing in between, a little bit of chat, and then we had the live band towards the end. And as I say, there was no cover charge on the door. People just gave donations very generously, and we raised £500 for brain cancer.
Yeah, it was a fantastic night. And like you say,
It really was.
you know, again, obviously I've reiterated that feedback that I've got for people. I do think you've got a great concept there, and hopefully we can push on and do that again.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, my next question, obviously, probably just leads into that, because obviously, what you do with voices and other stuff, that would be part of your coping mechanism. My question is, how do you cope, if indeed do you cope with the loss?
Yeah. Like I say, the only way I could make sense of, it's interesting, and I think I said this to you as well before, there's it's just like at birth, when a child's born, when you're in the hospital, you hear certain cliches, do you know what I mean? And interestingly enough, you hear the certain set of cliches, or at the time when you're not involved in them, they seem like cliches, but you see the truth of them when you have children and when they pass. Things like, I remember a couple of days after Blaze passed, a thought floating through my head, and I could not utter it for about a week. Life goes on. I was just like, whoa, I do not want to hear that at all. But, then that thought got linked to, okay, you have 3 other children. I mean, Asha, bless her, who's, just shouted me before, she was 5 at the time.
Yeah.
She saw the whole process going. What are you going to do? We had to get up the next morning and make a world for her that was safe and secure, and there's 2 other beautiful children. And the other one that you hear so much, and it's absolutely true, is that truth that, any loved one, not just Blaze, would not want you in in a pit of despair for the rest of your life. They would not want that for you, And so I guess really, and I remember speaking to you about this, and I remember saying about, yes, it's just my imagination. I don't actually hear Blaze's voice. But I spurred that on into a thought that, then not only do they want you to be in this pit and despair, this young child, he was 7.5, he's lost his life. I choose to, I need to choose to, I choose to need to honor that by living as a better human.
Yeah.
That is my spur. And again, let me be completely clear. Not only on a daily basis, I fail on a half-hour basis, but it's still my spur.
Yeah.
And, I have it has genuinely that energy, that loss energy. And, I've been through so much conflict with each other and thinking, well, is this just your selfishness? What are you even talking about? That kind of thing. But it's the best sense I can make of it. It is the best sense I can make of it with my mind. And what else do you have?
Yeah.
I don't have anything else.
And it's true, because like I said, when we've talked to other interviewees, and again, the common denominator is that what people say to you, and it's like, no, we don't want to hear that. We don't want to hear this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Etc. But also that thing about dads having to, like you've just explained about Aisha and your other children, that you've got to deal with them, trying to make them see a bit of sense for, or whatever, how kids interpret it about you, about Rachel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, I think just for me, the case of when I've spoken to other partners, people have said to me, oh, why wouldn't you made it a parents thing, a parents podcast?
Yeah.
And I'm trying, I reiterate all the time to them and say, listen, it's because as a man, I'm jealous of a woman's capacity. That they're able to liaise and generate to other females and whatever, whereas men don't. And like you said there, you've got to be this stoic, for want of a better word, individual, where you have to look after Rachel, you've got to look after your children.
Yeah. It's what you're doing is so vital, and I think times have moved on. we are now aware of that that label, that stereotype, that way of being that we, that's intergenerational. It's definitely, things have moved on. They've not changed completely. It's not been transformed, and that's what makes this the perfect. All these words, when we're talking about loss, it just seems every time you say a word like that, you kind of like pull back, don't you? But it is, I should stop being so reticent. It is, it's apt, appropriate, meaningful, valuable vehicle for that more men can channel themselves into, because men are thinking about this,
Well, that leads me to the next question, so to interject.
Yeah.
So basically, is how do you feel when you hear people say, "Dads don't talk"?
Yeah, I feel that.
I'm
Yeah.
bringing it down there rather than saying men, because we know men, but I'm on about dads in specific our scenario.
Yeah, I'd say that. I'd say that when a man is foisted into this situation, no matter what they're like in the rest of their life, me included, this will bring out the man's man in them potentially, and without the right energies around them, that can become quite problematic. And so this is why this is the perfect vehicle. And I'm certain that you must have that. This must be drawing so many people towards it. And I'm certain also that there'll be those who'll be challenged by it, but want to come to it, and will come to it over time, because this is what's needed.
Yeah, because Paul and I, obviously, when I first approached Paul about the idea, you know what I mean, and like I said, I say it many times, he's always been greatly supportive of me. Like, he won't like it, an older brother, but although he's younger than me, but he looks older. But and again, it was that thing about we were hesitant, we were worried because we didn't. It's an emotional subject. We didn't want people to turn off after 2 or 3 minutes, going, "Oh, I can't listen to that," because they might have been in a certain space, etc. You know what I mean? And for us to push on, and it's been amazing. The idea for us was just to if we get one man, and like you said, again with my story, I just reiterate again, the listeners obviously are aware of, 6 of us, mates, 20 years of loss, and only 2 really speak, either about the loss or even, to the friends, even sometimes to the wife, you know what I mean? And I thought, if we get just one, and I approached one of the lads and I said, what am I to expect out of this? I've experienced grief in terms of losing my gran, my brother, my mum. But like I say, losing the child, it's a completely different. What am I to expect? And it was interesting, and what one of them, 2 of them came back with. So it was a case of like, if people listen to this, we're trying to say to them, as us as being, and I hate it, although it's only 8 months in my book. I'm like, for someone who's newer, could be people out there who've just lost son or daughter, this is what will come to you. But you have somewhere where you can go, where you can chat, and if you want to chat, you know what I mean, and even not on here, and the fact even just to think that people, we've had loads of downloads and people have listened to it, which is, for me, was mind-blowing. Like you said, I didn't want to go down the route of a charity or something like that. I just wanted to do this and see what comes of it. Obviously, further on, who knows, if we get involved in voices or have a coffee morning or
exactly, all those kind of things, man, and they'd be so valuable to people. And it's that, and it's all part of that life going on, and I just always use the term walking with it. I think you have to embody the experience as you can't push it away. Well, you can go through the mental gymnastics of pushing it away, but it's not actually a feasible thing. I think the other thing that just reminded me as well is that I with grief, that I don't think losing someone, it's like being hit by a train. But there's no physical sides to it. Do you know what I mean? But grief is so physical. I was deaf in one ear for 6 months.
Really?
Literally, they could not understand what was going on. There is such a physical aspect, and some people don't recover from some of the physical side too.
Yeah.
And that's hardly talked about. Or, to my knowledge, it's not. I don't know. I can't speak for how much it is to be. I think it's so important that is spoken about, because you're going to have such, you are literally. And I remember again after he passed, and it took me a while. Calm down is not the right word, but to leave that space where you are in that literal shock, takes a while for that to go away. And that's when the next stages, that's when the more emotional stages will start to take place, while some of the physical healing is also taking place.
You mentioned, let's say, briefly about your children, Chris. How have these siblings? How are they?
Yeah, well, Asha's a complete Trojan. She really is. And again, I qualify this, anything I'm about to say, by, we have to watch her all the time and see how things are manifesting. But I think there's also that aspect of, naturally we can only contemplate what they're going to go through from our perspective, but actually children don't go through it in that way. And they've said that, we're going to have to be mindful as she goes through her developmental stages, that she will revisit it. But yeah, we just hold her close. She's growing well, she's developing well. We talk, Blaze is a part of our normal conversations, always has been. And, there's, there has been, especially in the first year, there have been times when that loss and the upset and the missing and the non-understanding, but she has found a way that she could probably not even explain to me, that she's found a way to embrace with it and walk with it. I think, as I say, as she gets older, there will be more questions.
Sure.
Sorry, Chris, can I just ask, what kind of support have you had, and your children? Have you had any kind of external support in terms of dealing with the grief?
The Francis House, where the school have been great, where Asha is at, brought her around the corner. There's some people there that have been really, really proactive in helping her. Francis House had her on a program for about the first 6 months. But aside from that, we've nurtured and grown with her ourselves into this new reality. We've not. My wife hasn't gone for any support, and I haven't either. It's interesting as well. So yeah, some of the things that I found really challenging and interesting and enlightening in many ways. Like, I remember speaking to someone about it and saying, and again, it's not okay. Just the way I experience life and the mind and what I see is going on with every individual as a human being. This grief is about Blaze, but it's happening to me. Mm-hmm. My life, I'm 60. So Blaze passed when I was 57 and a half, let's say. So prior to that, I've got a whole life history that is a part of that grief and the way I'm grieving with it. And so I just felt like if I was to go and talk to people, I could not extrapolate one from the other. Yeah. And so I feel that it's a process that I need to go through myself. And, there's also a piece of me thinking, well, maybe that's because you're too scared to go and speak. And I would always hold that door open for in the future, that maybe that time will come when we're allowed to change our minds. That's one of the things that meditation has told me. You find a belief, you hold firm with it, and you give it as much as your energy and concentration and purpose as you can, until you no longer believe it has value to you, or until you learn something new. So, absolutely, that's where I am with it at the moment. My family, there were times were saying, you should definitely go and see people. And I'm not holding any of that form of help or those forms with any disdain whatsoever. But for me, thus far, it hasn't been something that I've found that I've chosen to go and explore.
Yeah. Okay. So just to lighten it, maybe a little bit, for want of a better word, memories of Blaze. Yeah. I mean, you sent me a bit of stuff, so I'll let you maybe explain about that, which I was just like, wow, blown away in terms of the work that you do. But just tell us couple of great memories you've got of this superb what you had?
I mean, as a general memory, talking about Ashley, his bond with his sister was just like, so I was just looking at, that just pictures around the house. And it's the same for you, Trev. Do you know what I mean? Like we've got a huge picture of Blaze downstairs of when they're, one of they're starting a new school year, just as you come in the front door. So, just his bond with Asher, he was like, they were so close and would do absolutely everything together, and such fun to watch them play. Obviously, the first day he was born, just that light that was there, and the amazement, and just that beauty and that connection, that immediate connection with a child. One of the things that I was thinking about the other day was. And he was not a great sleeper at all. Getting him to sleep was just like a saga, a never-ending saga. And just one particular night, I had an iPad. So from the DJ, and I had an iPad, so I was trying to fill his time with that. And I was trying to show him how to mix on a. He was just playing around with the music. It was on a music mix program. But I went out of the room for about 10 minutes, and I came back, and this boy had the biggest beam on his face because he learned how to beat mix. And he would not. I could not get the iPad back from him for about 6 weeks because he'd learned how to mix on it. He would not leave it alone. He wouldn't pick any. He would not pick any of the tunes that I would pick. He had his own flavor, and that was Blaze very much. It was again, any parent would say that, but he definitely had a maverick flair about him. Interestingly enough, again, just yesterday. It was school leavers day at his school. So, and that pushed me into a situation to think about certain aspects of Blaze that I'd not thought about at all. I don't think of, I don't perceive him internally as a child anymore. That child, as we remembered him from 7.5 when he passed, that's not how I perceive him anymore. I don't actually have a picture of him as a fully grown person either, but that's not how I perceive him. In my internal process, especially over the first 6-8 months a year, Blaze was my best counselor. He was my best. Okay, so my understanding is that once a physical body is. Once a soul or spirit is freed from the physical body, just, there's nothing we can hide from them. They are aware of our every thought, everything, all the stuff that you can marginally hide when they're a child and they're alive, as we all do from our children, even though they're picking up on our every movement energetically and our emotions that we are trying to hide. Some of them they pick up on, even if they can't formalize or articulate what they're actually picking up on. All that's gone. It is gone. They know everything. They are with you with everything. And as well as that, the beauty of it is, for me, is that there is no judgment because they are not physically conditioned anymore. So you have the most beautiful, the most immediate, the most honest relationship with them that you can ever have. And Blaze has helped me so much in that way.
Fantastic.
He's helped me so much in that.
That's really, really beautiful.
Yeah, it truly is. It truly is.
I was saying to Paul, before Paul was asking me a little bit about, I said, this man has this way, the way he articulates, his spiritual, his universal, his being, which for me, I've always, been in awe of it. I think, like I said, meeting you many, many years ago, and I think, we come across a little bit at the Hacienda, but mostly the green room is where we really connected a lot of stuff. And even then, you know what I mean? And the way, again, like the way you just articulate things is brilliant, is brilliant. And, I just, like you say, I think it's extremely, like you say, I don't know if, people said to me before, don't use that adjective brave, but to me it is brave for people to come and
There's
speak.
definitely an element of that, and I remember the first time someone said to me, they didn't want to be called that. So I've been very careful about how I use that phrase with, I guess there must be, but I don't know what the word would be really, but there is definitely an element of that, but that braveness again is fueled by Blaze or by your Jordan, because, I remember I met someone, a lad called Sen Sanger, and he said to me, and I'm not saying this is the case in any way. I want to be humble about it. I'm not trying to wear this coat, but he said to me, you don't understand about how much you will help people to understand about grief, and this horrible situation that you've found yourself in,
Yeah.
and how much blazes within you energetically, and how much you'll be able to help people, some in small ways and in others, to be able to walk with this in and I would just use that term openly as the only illusion that we can come to in a way that's brave, but it's not me alone. Do you know what I mean? I have my dark moments, I have my quiet, I have my moments of confusion, yet still, we've got just in the hallway here, there's two pictures on either side of the hall of Blaze and Ashes together, and we call it the Field of Blaze. And you can walk there, and again, it's my chosen imagination. Some people would walk there and feel nothing, but that, for me, there's an energy there. Sometimes, when I'm like, as I was to go back to what I was saying, like yesterday morning when I got up, I'm just thinking about things that things that I hadn't really thought about, because I think about Blaze as not as the boy form that left us, but because it was Leavers Day, I began to think of what would he be doing, those kind of questions, and it led into quite a few things. It led into as all fathers will, all parents will as well. Any regrets that you may have had before we knew that Blaze was ill. You're just doing your parenting where you're not, deaf. It makes you, especially the death of the child, makes you realize that thing. We all know this, living in the moment, living for the moment. But it becomes an adage. No one lives like that. We all begin to take life for granted. When you lose someone, especially in that first period, you begin to see the truth of that. And so, it just, in that period, I was thinking about all the, my regrets as a parent, of things I may not have done, things I may not have said, all those kind of stuff that you naturally go through, and I was getting ready for work in the morning to go to Green End Primary School, thinking, well, how am I going to be able to be with these people when I'm in this condition? And just stopped for a minute, did some meditation, and kindled or embraced Blaze's energy. Come on, Dad, we've got things to do.
Fantastic. And again, for me, how I see it in terms of your position again is like, and obviously correct me if I'm wrong, but this is just me surmising, is like what you do with the children there, you know what I mean, and how you help them. I can imagine that's you with Blaze.
Yeah, 100%.
So in some ways, it's like, a virtual, like a surrogacy type thing.
Yeah, 100%, man, 100%. And like, as we touched on earlier, I started at that school in 2021, so it was a year and a half after Blaze had passed. And it was a mixture of, we need to start earning money. We cannot sit around. Not that we were sitting around anyway, but it was time for a change in our process and where we were. And I remember the first day I walked in there, and I met this young lad. I had to walk out. The tears just came, man. But and there was some reticence. Should I be putting in my energy that was for this child into someone else? Just so much of our thoughts are absolute nonsense. And this is the thing that meditation teaches us. There's so much stuff that goes through our head that just should not be adhered to not followed down its path, but it still goes through your head. So you have to decide which thoughts you select, don't you, really, and which ones you're going to say are you, and which ones you follow as part of your identity. So I did, and especially at such a heightened time after the death of someone, your questions become more intense, more diverse. So I had to figure out, for a while it was like, should I be giving this energy to young people? But absolutely, and even and Blaze would say it does say the same. Absolutely.
You see, what I'm even beginning to take out of all of the interviews that I'm doing here is that we are, you, the other interviewees, are educating is not the word really I want to use, but you're giving people who are going to be, unfortunately, members of the exclusive clubs that dads don't want to belong to. We're giving them a certain bit of knowledge, a certain bit of insight of how we are and how we do deal with things, or whether we don't deal with things, and saying to them, look, no one's ever sat us down and go, it's like parenting. No one ever sits us down. This is the way you should do it.
Exactly.
You know? So in terms of the grief, for me, I'm learning from you. I've learned from the other interviewees. I've learned from the people that I talk to, and I think we need something like that. We need something people go, you know what? Let me listen to this, and and that resonates with me. That's how I felt today. This is what happened, and blah blah blah. Like I say, I think our grief is the same, but it's not the same.
No, absolutely, absolutely. It's definitely, it's absolutely, and there's so much of an analogy of that with general life as well. I mean, another thing I remember is that first, when he first got the diagnosis, and then going upstairs to the ward, and you open that door, and you go, right, okay, this is a world that I never knew existed, but there's all these people in here who are following this same path, and there's people in those wards there, and this is one ward in one hospital, and there's people in there who have not left that place there for 2 years, some of them. Do you know what I mean? They've not left there at all, so that, it's not a world that you would know about naturally, but when you see it, there are people walking that same path, and who knows how many of those people who I met in there have lost their young ones since then. And then some of them will go on and set up charities, some will, and as you say, will be there as a guiding hand, a guiding heart for others who are going to go down that path. I mean, we are in some ways or the other drawn to one another.
Madness, is it? Listen, Chris, I just, again, mate, it's not to say, mate, it's been brilliant. We really appreciate your time.
Yeah, I really appreciate it too, man.
Your knowledge, the way that you articulate everything, and, again, it's just, it adds to me that the I don't know what to say, the richness of this, what we're doing. It gives me a bit of sense, like, to go, what I mean? It's working, it's good, because like I said, we all have these idiosyncrasies, what I mean? Is it going to work? Is this going to happen? And, getting people to talk, getting people to just like listen, what I mean? And, it's just fantastic, mate. And having people, having you on, which is just, it's just been great, man. It's just been...
Well, listen, I will also say then that just because of the way thoughts go through my head sometimes, there's some of this conversation, when you listen back, it might be a bit back and forth. And if it's not clear enough and you want me to say something in a more direct way, please do. Do you know what I mean?
No, listen, it's, my job is to sit back and listen. And when I first when Trev first came to me with this idea, I wasn't 100% behind it. And my concern still is Trevor and where Trevor is, and whatever we can do to support that. But I will also say that from the feedback that's come back from speaking to people like yourself, Chris, and other people, it has been really amazing. And it will absolutely. I mean, I've also got a mental wellbeing charity, Manic Spirit, and I know, and because you've been around just as long as me, is that somebody out there will listen to what you've said, and it will impact their life in a really, really positive way. And the chances are you'll never ever know who that is, and you'll never meet them, but it will happen, and that to me is so powerful. And you are brave. You're both brave. I know it gets bandied around a lot, but my personal humble opinion is that you're two really brave human beings, and what you've said today has been I just feel honored to have just sat and listen to you both talk, to be honest. Sorry to but in one thing I would like to ask, because I when we was talking to Trevor about you coming on, and Blaze is a beautiful name, a beautiful name, and I said that to Trev. And what's is there a story behind?
Yeah, well, it's really interesting actually, because myself and Rachel, we are such opposite characters, and then when she first told me she was pregnant, I was like, man, this name is not going to be easy. This is not going to be an easy circle to square. And she came downstairs one evening to me and said, what do you think about Blaze? And I was just like, immediately, yeah. So it's Blaise.
Yeah.
And madly enough, actually, 10 days ago, there was an article in The Guardian. So it's Blaise Pascal who invented. So let me get it up for you now, because, you know, it's really interesting, actually, because he was quite a life philosopher, but, you know, he was the polymath, basically. And he's known for it. Is it the Newtons he invented? He invented the system of weights, Newtons, but his his field, his remit went right round from philosophy to, and again, you know, he talks about vibration and the universe and our connection.
Wow.
And I didn't even know it that deeply at the time. I just loved the name. Rachel told me that it was Blaise Pascal, you know, and he was a multidisciplinary scientist. But the more I've read into him, he's, you know, he did art and everything as well. So yeah, let's have a look here. Born June 19th, 1623, French philosopher. So that most people will know
1623.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
2 days
most
after my
people-
birthday.
Say again.
2 days after my birthday.
Most people will know for the Pascal's weight system. Yeah. But there's a lot.
Beautiful name.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, it was. I think it was 100 or 200 or 300 year anniversary about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I posted. I'll find the article in the Guardian and send it to you, actually, just out of interest. But yeah, that's where the name. It's funny, actually, because I remember two things that I remember as well. There's a lad called another DJ in Manchester called, I can't remember his name, but I met him when Blaze was first born, a few months old. I met him in Jam Street Cafe Bar, and he called his son Blaze as well. So it didn't seem quite as unique as it is. Yeah, I was like, no way. I was like, no way. But also, and then there's some other geezer that I met once out in a club night or somewhere. And do you know what some fella turned around and said to me? He thought it was obviously, and I get that people might think it's Blaze, but he said it's because of smoking.
Oh,
yeah, that's why we.
yeah. In fact, and not only is his name Blaze, but his middle name's Ganja. You know what I mean? Some people, mate. I know I'm like you. Sometimes I just think to myself, really?
Yeah, isn't it?
People say really? Why would you even think?
I'll take the 16th century philosopher.
Yeah, we'll take him.
Yeah, man.
Chris, it's been
Thanks
fantastic,
for that, Chris.
mate.
Yeah,
really enjoyed it, man. And,
thank you so much. Thank you.
Touch base, man. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it, man. And
thank you, mate.
Soon,
Good to meet you, Paul. Thank you. Bye bye.
Yeah, you too.
See you later. Thanks, Chris. Bye, mate.
Bye, mate.
You was going to ring me. Your friends, they say. When? What day? What week? What month? Sometime in May? But you didn't get time because your time ran out before you could talk, scream or shout. Discuss the stupid reason why your son and his dad fell out. Your body may have gone away, but I converse with you every night and day. Sometimes for 10 minutes, sometimes for hours. In the sun, the cold, the rainy showers. I sit at your place. I refuse to call it your grave. I watch as the fresh flowers wilt. I pray that you're warm in your sacred quilt below the frozen ground. I shout at the universe, and at night alone, I plead with it to swap time around and bring you back home. My eyes are shut tight because, chronologically, this ain't right. I cry that you won't physically experience the joys of raising your son. 19 months is all you had. Just beginning to enjoy the sound of him saying, Dad. Each day I ring my buddy's bell for you to hear beyond the skies, as a metaphor for you to tune into your son's breath, laughter and cries. He will know you. I feel guilty should I laugh or smile. I feel like I'm in a room with no windows or doors. 1 hour I'm okay, the next in a puddle on the floor. My eyes start to sting, my throat is dry. Sometimes I feel I've no more tears to cry. But that's an illusion as my face becomes wet every day since you went away. To a better place, people, they say. In your religion, it's quoted that your time is preordained. But whoever decided that, did they not consider the pain for those of us who remain? I try to understand it, but it doesn't register with my brain. What about the tradition that's conditioned in our brains from when we were kids, that our parents will be the ones to meet us as we travel to the next world to be reunited again? But hold on, let me reiterate before I say goodnight. This isn't chronologically fucking right. So until we clasp our hands within each other's palms, like the way you grip my finger on the day you were born, firm and tight, I shall walk about this world with an unrepairable hole in my heart throughout every yearly season, trying to decipher things happen for a reason. I cry to die to be with you. I cry to stay alive too, to help my beautiful daughter, your sister, escape from being consumed by this pain until, like me, she's reunites with you, but not for decades and decades and decades and decades and decades. I couldn't be that selfish to put her through it again. Therefore, one sweet day is our song I shall sing from now till then. True lyrics from Mariah Carey and Boys to Men. My son Jordan, I miss you. I love you. Dad.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the exclusive club that Dads Don't Want to Belong to podcast, hosted by Trevor Dwyer Lynch, produced by Paul Ludden and proudly supported by the Manx Spirit Charity. Please subscribe to our podcast, and if you can leave us a review, that would be much appreciated. Thank you.